Hello everyone, welcome to DevOps Info channel. Today we are going to talk about the continuation of the topic Zero Trust Security features available in the Azure. In the last video we had a look at the Azure DDoS protection and its features. If you have missed viewing that video, I highly recommend to take a look at it so that it can be helpful in utilizing them in your Azure environment. Today in this video, we are going to talk about the Azure firewalls. Hopefully, after this, I will end the zero trust security features what are available in the Azure with a couple of videos. Like one, I would cover with the leftovers, whatever it is present, and the last one is like I will show on how to create the Azure network resources via the Terraform. So today, talking about the Azure firewall. Uh, Azure Firewall consists of two things like the firewall and the firewall manager. We will talk a little bit about it. So basically, these are the cloud native network security, which is available in the Azure to protect your Azure Vnets and your resources in the Azure. It is a stateful firewall which has the built-in high availability and help protect your services applications across your subscriptions and which is present in your VNets. So this is, as I stated, it's a stateful firewall. For people who are not familiar with the stateful firewall, this stateful firewall will examine the behavior of the data packets, and if anything seems to be suspicious on the data packets, they can filter out those suspicious data. And a stateful firewall can also track how the data behaves and look at the pattern of the behavior. So basically, the stateful firewalls do examine a deep inspection of the data packets and then sees if anything is suspicious. And when we talk about the stateless, it make use of the data packet source, destination, and it has few parameters to figure out whether the data is present is suspicious or it's having anything. So if the data that's received is going outside the parameter what they have, then it is considered as suspicious. So if you ask me, like, if you want to use a stateful or a stateless firewall, it again depends on the application. For example, UDP, if you're talking about in the wide world, it's a very commonly used protocol that is by default stateless in nature. And if we try to do, a packet inspection on the UDP or anything, then it is effectively going to drag the performance. So basically, you have to check based on the application, your requirement, and choose which is the best firewall. So that's a short summary of a stateful and stateless. If you want to know more about it, then you can definitely take a look more into the Google search. There are a lot of articles about the same. Excuse me. Um, yeah. So basically, when we're talking about Azure firewalls, let me go through the slide, which I have prepared few slides talking about that, and then we will take a look at the a demo. Excuse me. So basically, Microsoft offers the Azure firewall in three tiers: a basic, standard, and a premium. So you can deploy Azure Firewall on any virtual network, but usually it's recommended to deploy it on a central virtual network and peer the other virtual network in a hub and spoke model. So that's the recommended way, always used for the firewall in the Azure. So if we talk about the feature comparison, when we talk about the basic, one second, I'm just going. Okay. So when we're talking about let me take the laser pointer. So when we're talking about the feature set, the basic one has the built-in high availability. It has the availability zones. It has the application FQD and filtering. if it has the FQDN tags, service tags. So these are all the the feature sets that you can do it on the basic. For example, if you talk about the service tag, yeah, service tag represent a group of IPs from a specific Azure service. Like the reason why to use the service tag is like they can we can define uh, to a particular service on a network security group, and then we can ask them to define this service tags in the network security group. Like basically you can group IP from a specific Azure service. Like for example, I can group a service tag for a SQL, or a service tag for Bastion, and then I can use choose that particular service tag when I'm just creating a network security group. So this creates a simple life for monitoring as well as maintaining these rules for different Azure services for the network administrators. So yeah, that's one example for service tax. So the reason why I was talking is the service tax is even available in the basic, which is really good. Um, and even if you talk about Azure Monitor logging, which we have it, that's really good. But when we talk about a comparison, a difference between the basic and standard, there, the one which starts from the thing which is not available on the basic is the DNS proxy. So what is DNS proxies? With the DNS proxy enabled, you can process and forward the DNS queries from your virtual network to a desired DNS server. I will show you that in the demo, what we are going to take a look at it. And you also have the custom DNS. Like for example, if you want to, configure, use your own DNS server, then the outbound dependencies are going through your custom DNS server, um, and you can also configure like your outbound configurations are still going through the Azure DNS. So these kind of custom DNS configuration is possible only in the standard. So basically, with the DNS proxy, you can forward your queries from your virtual network to a desired DNS server. And in the custom DNS server, you can configure Azure Firewall to use your own DNS server. Yeah, that's as simple as that. And the next thing is like you have FQDN network rules, which is known deployment without public IP address in force channel mode. Yeah, the force channel mode, like you can force like your outbound traffic to go through a different a network solution, and then it can go outside to the internet. So just an example, you can even in a force channel, you can force your traffic to go directly to your data center and then going outside to the internet. So these kind of things you can do with the Azure firewall. In the standard one. In the basic one, it is not possible. And yeah, these are the things you have. The and also you have the web categories. For example, if you talk about the web categories that's available in standard and premium, this will let the admins to basically filter few website categories. Like for example, social media websites. Those kind of things can be blocked with the web categories. And with the premium one, you see three things which is coming in. That's the TLS inspection. With the TLS inspection, you'll be able to inspect your encrypted traffic, and then you have the intrusion detection prevention system. That is one of the additional feature, and you have the URL filter. So these are the three things that's coming from basically from the uh, premium. So going further, yeah, on the left side you see the diagram. This is how it looks. The configuration of the Azure Firewall. You can basically integrate with your on-premise, and then you have the spoke, and then yeah, you can configure all those rules. And Microsoft Threat Intelligence is also present by default in the basic, which is good. Um, Going further, excuse me, I wanted to just show an example of how it looks. Yeah, of course, the network can go always complicated. So by default, it looks like this when you are planning to deploy this. So in my case, if you see like whatever you see it on the south, this is the uh, this is my subscription, and in the subscription I have multiple applications running, and in this, like for example, I need to have a way to connect all my applications to the internet. So in those cases I can use the SNAT. So basically SNAT translates your private IP to a single public IP address. It's just basically a port address translation, a type of a network address translation, which is used to map all your private IP address to a single public IP address. So basically, all outbound traffic is sent to a private IP address, and you know private IP of your Azure Firewall instance, and then all destinations are going through one single public IP address. Yeah. And the same thing is for the DNAT. So for the DNAT, all inbound traffic from the external sources is sent to the public IP address, and then for a specific service, you can route that to that particular host. For example, suppose a company wants to allow external users to take RDP of one of the server which is present in the Azure, or yeah, in those cases, you can configure the DNAT. Basically, for all allowed inbound traffic, Azure Firewall uses the DNAT to translate the firewall's public IP address to the private IP address of the appropriate destination. For example, as I said, it's an RDP for any management server. Then the firewall public IP address will receive the request, and then it will translate to the destination resource, which is like it can be your management server. And for the outbound traffic, Azure Firewall uses the SNAT, which is used to translate the source IP address to the firewall's public IP address. Only then, it's a port address translation. Only then they will be able to communicate to the external world. So, talking about this, yeah, this looks like it in reality, because I have shown some examples. Like you see, there is a force tunneling. Like if you want to route the traffic to the data center, and then if you want to make those connections, few connections to go to the internet, that's also possible, force channeling. And then you have the IDPS, which is available in the premium. And then yeah, you have the firewall policies. Yeah, in the firewall policies there are multiple firewall policies. Like for example, you can filter out the firewall policies from a particular application to go out on a port basis, and then you can also filter out to filter out the traffic to go only on a FQDN basis. For example, this application wants to communicate to the Azure SQL, then probably I can just create an application rule which will go to the database.windows.com. Yeah, the same thing. For example, if I want to, you know, uh, receive a particular inbound for RDP, then I would just do a DNAT, and then I will open the required port. For example, if it is for RDP 3389, for SHH 22, all those things I can do. And yeah, you also have the Azure Monitor, which is good. We will see this in the demo. So talking about this, now let's dive into the reality and then take a look at it. I wanted to show, yeah. So the moment there are multiple ways to create it through the portal or through the Terraform or any kind of automation. And in this example, I'm just showing how it is looking like after the creation. Yeah, but by default, when you create a firewall, you have something called Firewall Manager. So this Azure Firewall Manager is the central place where you would be able to monitor and create all the firewall rules, and also modify all the firewall rules. It's a centralized place. So the centralized place helps you to basically uh, create all the rules. So going further, I will show you what is the rule which I have created. Here, like the moment when you create, this is the firewall which I created. So the moment when you create, it would give you a firewall like this. So you have to go to the Azure Firewall Manager to configure and manage this firewall. So I'm just going to the Azure Firewall Manager. So in the Azure Firewall Manager, you see the Azure Firewalls. In when clicking on the Azure firewalls, I can create multiple firewalls. Like when you create it, it will ask you the option to choose basic, standard, or premium. In our example, I have chosen the standard so that we will be able to see what are the features that's coming in the standard. Because with the basic, there are a few things which we are not able to explore. So when I'm clicking on the the firewall standard one, the first thing is you see the private IP. Of course, the private IP is used and is required for doing the SNAT for all the applications that needs to connect to the internet. You basically route the traffic to the private IP of the firewall, and from there, the firewall has one public IP. It routes all the traffic outside to the public IP. So it's not that you need to use just one public IP, or you should have just one firewall. It's based completely on your requirement how we are going to design your network from south to north traffic, whatever it is going to the internet. Yeah, so this is what we talk about the Azure firewalls, and it doesn't stop with this because there are multiple rules we can do. So the firewall which you create, you can just go to the Azure Firewall Manager. In the Azure Firewall Manager, basically you go to the Azure Firewall policies. In the Azure Firewall policies, you can see what are the firewall policies that you have created. So for example, when I go into the test firewall which I created, we see some parent policy which will be there, and these are the rule connections. So basically, an firewall policy is an Azure resource that contains one or more collection of NAT, which is which can be an SNAT, a DNAT. SNAT is the source NAT, traffic going from south to the north, and DNAT is the destination NAT, traffic coming from north to the south. Network and the application rules. It also contains custom DNS settings, threat intelligence settings, and more, because we have all these features in the Azure Firewall. So when we go into the rule connections, let's take a look. Okay, I understand. One second. So when we go into the rule connections, so these are the few rule connections which I have created for the demo. So if you talk about the outbound, yeah, this falls under the network rule category. So here I just created an outbound rule where it's like a HTTPS traffic originating from one of the management server, which is like 10.0.0.3. I have one VM running in the subscription. The protocol is TCP. Destination port is 443, and the IP address is just it goes to the internet. So this is just one example you can create, and also for the inbound. So this is the DNAT. So basically, what you need to do is like this is for SSH. TCP on port 22, and it should land in the destination firewall. It should basically land in the destination firewall, and then the destination firewall will translate to uh, the management server IP address, like which is 10.0.0.3. So the moment when I create this, then all the traffic that is coming for the port 22 will come and hit my firewall IP, and the firewall basically it will hit the firewall public IP, and the firewall will route this particular IP to the translated address. So like what is the address you want, it will go there. So this is the one which is basically for the DNet rules, and you also have the application rules. I also created just one example for the application rules. Yeah, basically in the rule collections, you see what are the different types of rules you have. Like for example, this is the network connection rule, this is the DNet connection rule, and this is the application. So it just simply it's a collection of the different rules whatever you have, because as the environment grows, you will have a lot of rules. That's the reason they have the rule collection. Yeah, so in the rule collection, for example, I created a rule for SQL that goes also to my management server, and then I use the protocol MS SQL 1433. Yeah, of course, I cannot use the TLS inspection as I stated because it is available only on the premium. So destination I can choose, and the destination FQDN, Windows.database.net. This is the Azure uh, yeah, Azure URL that is used for the Azure SQL database. Yeah, this is what about the rule collections and rule application rule. This is what about the application rule. Similarly, you can create multiple things based on the FQDN that you wanted to connect to the internet. And the next one is the DNS. When you come into the DNS, like this will not be enabled on Azure Firewall Policy. For example, when you enable the DNS, then you have two types. Like default is the Azure provided DNS, and the second one is the custom DNS. When you put the custom DNS, then you're going to use your own DNS server for the resolution. And then you have the DNS proxy. If enabled, then the particular firewalls will listen to port 53 and will forward the DNS report. It's just a proxy. It is going to forward it. So the DNS proxy is disabled. If you enable it, then it is just simply listen on port 53 and will forward all the DNS requests to the DNS server which is specified above. So you should be very careful playing around with this configuration, because your DNS server that you're mentioning here should be always available. So that's also important. And also, you should see which is best for your environment. And going about the threat intelligence, this is the threat intelligence by default. It is set in the alert only mode. So, like the threat intelligence based filtering will be enabled on your firewall, and by default, known traffic that is coming from the malicious IP addresses and domains will be alerted. And you have some allow list address. The moment when you do an allow list address, yeah, there is a possibility you can go for any false positives. And in that case, like when you add these IPs, then those are IPs or FQDNs, then those are not, no filtration is done on that. It's just bypassed for this policy. This is very good. And then the last two parts, the TLS inspection and the IDPS, which is not available by default on the basic and standard. So if you want to use this TLS inspection and the IDPS, then you have to utilize the premium firewall. Yeah, these are the secure virtual networks. Excuse me. So this is the secure virtual network which is created and protected. I just created it before you create Azure Firewall, then it will ask you to create a virtual network. So that's what it is showing over here. And the private IP ranges. So like by default, it will perform an SNAT. For all IP address except those specified below. It will not perform an SNAT. If you want to perform a SNAT, always you can select this option, or never. I don't know when you will use that, but you can choose that based on your requirement. And yeah, and these are, I did not explore this part because it's in the preview, explicit proxy, but yeah, it's always not recommended to test any preview functionalities on the production. And this part, policy analytics, is the really nice one, which is coming for free even in the basic. So this is really good. It says the policy limit rules with multiple IP addresses, rules with low utilization. You have the DNAT rules, you have the network rules, you have the application rules. This is like you can also even see the traffic flows, which is really good, right? So this is very nice about the monitoring part, which is available on 3 SKUs, which is really good. And the last part is also task, which is in the previous state. You can schedule a task to get notified and take actions for any automation part. So overall, this is what I see about the Azure firewall policies and the firewall manager. So, in short, like you should decide when you wanted to use the Azure Firewall Premium, or when you want to use the Azure Firewall Standard. You can use that in combination, and yeah, suppose the company wants to deploy Azure Firewall Manager. Uh, you need to always keep in mind that spoke is not the recommended way. You should uh, always go with the hub, and from there you just do the connection. That's always better. So basically you need to decide, plan how your traffic flows, and then how are you going to utilize the firewall manager. And that will definitely help you in protecting your resources and different from all kind of threats that's for the services that's available in your subscription. So together with all these different types of firewall rules which is present in Azure Firewall and Azure Firewall Manager, then you can filter all incoming and outgoing threats, and then you can have a better network security uh, in your trusted network. So that is also important. You need to define what is your trusted and untrusted network. So like in your trusted network, in order to protect, then the firewall job is to analyze all this traffic incoming, outgoing, and based on the analysis, it gives you either to allow or pass. So overall, this is what I wanted to talk about the Azure Firewall. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you.